Hello there, and thank you for watching this video. In this video, we will discuss strategies for effective presentation. We have a few questions that you might ask. I'd like to start with a question for Dr. Uma Pradhan. What are some essential strategies of effective presentation, some basic strategies that make any presentation effective?
Thank you. Thank you for that question. Effective presentation, in my opinion, starts with effective preparation. Even before you start your presentation, what kind of preparation you're doing to know your audience, to understand your key messages, and how are we structuring those key messages, I think is quite an important part of effective presentation. So one of the things that I'd like to emphasize regarding effective presentation is really about knowing your audience. Who is your audience? Generally, the kind of ideas, the way we structure our presentation for academic audience would be very different if we are talking to general public, or if we are talking to children, or if we are making a presentation in a school. So really thinking about your audience and how we can make it interesting and engaging for that audience is, I think, important part of that effective presentation. Second, I think, is we need to be really clear about what our key message is. What is it that we are trying to really convey through that presentation? What is it that we want our audience to take away at the end of that presentation? And really focusing the presentation on those key ideas and key message is quite important. In terms of language, I think it's quite important also to really think about, are there key words? And especially if we are not familiar with those words, do we know how to pronounce them? Do we know how to use them? How are we going to explain these key ideas and concepts is also quite important for effective presentation. And generally really structuring this content within the time limit that has been given to you, and how are we really going to present that content by either outlining our content, our structuring our presentation, really giving the introduction, key messages and conclusion, really structuring it well. And I think, as I mentioned earlier, key to effective presentation is effective preparation. So really rehearsing, practicing. If needed, we can record our presentation now with different kinds of tools that we have, and really think about our presentation skills, pronunciation. Are there any kind of confusing structure? Do we need to change anything in our outline? And the structure of our content, I think, would really be important in structuring our presentation.
I'd like to ask the next question of Vandana Jain. Can you share some strategies related to media? Because we use media a lot of times when doing presentations, we just don't do it with our body and voice. Can you share some strategies about media use?
There are many strategies, but I would like to highlight some. First, what kind of media are you comfortable with, like PowerPoint, Prezi, sport videos, photographs, hands-out, posters? Choose the ones that you are most comfortable with. Second, avoid long and text-heavy PowerPoints. Include visuals, pictures, or bullet points on key ideas. Only include the media and content that is meaningful and worthwhile for the presentation. Be clear about what is on the media. Why are they being used in the presentation? How does it link with the key idea? Give enough time to the audience to understand the contents on the media.
I think media is really about drawing people's attention to what we are trying to say, and that could be used as a very powerful tool in really visualizing your content rather than just adding a lot of text on the media. And sometimes a media doesn't always have to be PowerPoint only. It could be sometimes short videos, as Vandana just mentioned. Could it be also photographs? It could be different ways of really explaining things. So really exploring different media is quite an important way to connect with the audience and establish that kind of understanding between the audience and the presenter.
We're on to the third question, and I'd like to pick that one. How can you engage the audience when presenting across borders, cultural borders, disciplinary borders, geopolitical borders? I'd like to build on something that Dr. Pradhan said earlier, which is know your audience. I would add that there are 4 pillars in the field of rhetoric. We teach students what makes communication effective. One is the audience, but I add three more, and I say CAMP. C being the context. What is the context? Is it formal or informal? The physical context, comfortable, how's the room, is it hot? Even those things will affect, right? How big is the room? How big is the screen? Are they able to see? These are physical contexts. Then there's psychological context of people being hostile to you. It's a different context than people laughing and having fun and that kind of conversation. There may be political context, which is like you're speaking about a political topic in a very politically difficult time. There may be social context, there may be cultural context. Think about the context in which you're presenting. You're not presenting in a vacuum, right? It could be a general academic context, neutral, nothing special, so that you just focus on the idea and engage the audience. But pay attention to all of these contexts, especially when you're presenting across cultures. The second is audience, as we already discussed. Who are the audience? What do they know already? What do they not know? What do they think about this issue? What is their attitude about it? What is their attitude towards you? How are you going to engage them? How are you going to build your relationship? So that's A, CA. M is medium. We talked about it earlier. Again, what is the medium? How's the medium going to help you? Is the medium going to facilitate your conversation in a different way? A PowerPoint slide may be slightly different from a piece of paper or objects. What are they called? Props, right? So these media will also sort of mediate your presentation. And that means pay attention to that. Like, how big is my screen and will the people in the back see it, right? That's M. And then P is the purpose. I put the purpose last because sometimes we just focus on the purpose so much that we do not pay attention to the audience and the context and the medium, especially in cross-cultural and cross-border situations, presentations. So I would start there. And once you understand the context, audience, mediums, and purpose, I'd like to suggest that you would focus on comprehensibility and intelligibility. Intelligibility is, am I clear? Aha, I just realized I was very fast. I didn't practice what I preach. Intelligibility is, are you speaking in a way that the audience can understand? That is you. Comprehensibility is whether the audience can understand or not. Communication has two aspects. We call it the communicative burden. The first burden is on the speaker to make it, or writer, to make it comprehensible, being intelligible. The other one is comprehension, the other person understanding. In cross-cultural context, people are very tolerant. Even if you mispronounce a word, even if you say something that is not perfectly clear, they will go across that border. People that live in homogeneous society, like the monolingual English speakers of America or Britain, they don't try to understand others. So you need to be really thoughtful about them. Be kind to them. They want English in their way because they think it is their property. So be careful. If you're speaking to British or American speakers, slow down. Say your words in your best way possible, not necessarily their way, but also not in a way that you don't carry the burden and say, you call a heart a hurt. Of course, they're going to understand hurt if you say hurt. So as much as possible, take your extremely local pronunciation and local sound a little outside the box of the local if you're trying to communicate across the borders, right? That's your intelligibility challenge. But again, pay attention to comprehension so that you can see whether they're understanding, and you can slow down, you can say differently, you can use your visual. That's what I mean by comprehensibility, intelligibility, overlap. If there's no overlap, then the communication is not working. Avoid local terms. Don't say TU. What does TU mean? Is the Brazilian or Chinese scholar able to understand TU? They don't use the word TU at all. Maybe it's Tennessee University or Tsinghua University, Tribhuvan University, which is the largest university in Nepal, public university in Nepal. Unpack as needed. Places. I was in Pokhara, a tourist town in my home country last week. Define. If you use acronyms or places and institutions, define. Always try to think, what does this person already know? Can I use this shorthand or not? We have another module for that, but try to improve the basic sounds. Like if you have always been saying heart instead of heart, this is the time to do it. Communication across borders, right? People in Japan or Korea or in Brazil, forget about America and Britain. Don't use heart. You will need to say heart because it's a heart. this one. To learn about cultural difference to the extent possible. If you're going to a particular country, let's say Japan, learn about Japan. It's possible. If it's mixed, then you're in bigger trouble. You try to make it as comprehensible as possible, as accessible as possible. But if you're going to one particular culture, one particular context, study that context. One of the things that I hear all the time people say about communicating across cultures is use stories and analogies. Human brain is very good at understanding, following patterns and stories and characters and events and plots. So use stories and examples and analogies that will help you to unpack complex concepts that may be culturally unfamiliar. Slow down, as I said earlier, to become clearer, but not to an offensive point. A lot of Americans or British people, when they see someone who do not speak their native language in their native way, will just slow down and say, I was saying, like, stop. I'm able to process the information, keep going. But slowing down to a reasonable point and being clear, not just loud, is helpful. And finally, it takes a little bit of more work during the process of presentation to engage the audience, because you're not going to know a lot of things ahead of time. You might say, is that clear? In my home culture, we use this term. And then someone will say, yes, go on. So it will take a little bit of work during the presentation. But the more work you do before the presentation, the better it will be. Otherwise, you'll end up asking 70 questions about your terms and not be able to engage the audience well. Okay, let me stop there. In fact, I'll ask the next question, which is, I think, Bhagwati Kadikote is going to address. What are some common mistakes or pitfalls to avoid when giving a presentation?
I want to highlight some mistakes that we need to avoid while giving presentation. One of the mistakes many presenters make is trying to do too much in one presentation. If you have 15 minutes, plan for 12. Save time for audience engagement, save time for technical issues and other loss of time. And if you have more time, you can go deeper on some things or save time for question and answer. And another mistake presenters make is speaking too quickly or too slowly. Effective presenters slow down, especially if they are fast speakers. Pausing is another good idea because it allows the audience to process the information. Speaking in jargon is another mistake. If you are expecting a non-specialist audience, replace your complex tone with simple tones. Over your allotted times, people in your audience will never scold you for ending early, but they certainly will for ending late.
Indeed. A lot of people are content focused. Right? Content is not the big deal. The big deal is the audience. You're doing it for the audience. You're not doing it for the PowerPoint. You're not doing it for the subject matter. You're not doing it for yourself. And that generosity leads to more audience focused presentation, including if I need to present in 5 minutes what I prepared for 20, so be it. Right? Sometimes it happens. The technology doesn't work and you're left with 5 minutes. Go ahead and take the 5 minutes and say, that's it, I just summarized it. We finally have this question that all of us would like to address, which is, can you share a personal experience or story of how you mastered presentation skills and how that has helped you to be a more effective professional or teacher or scholar?
I'm not a very good public speaker, and I've always found it very difficult to do presentations in front of large audience. So one of the things that I have usually done is and that's why I was really emphasizing on preparation in the beginning as well. What I have done is, over time, I have begun to prepare some kind of script, which is not necessarily to read out from the script, but really to understand how am I going to structure the presentation, what are the words I'm going to use, or how am I going to explain certain things. So preparing that script, a very loose script to structure myself and to guide myself. And I've realized that this helps me to be really confident on the content that I'm speaking on, as well as keep to the time. And one of the things that most of the academics do is to really keep on explaining things and it will go over time. And I try to really avoid that in my presentation as much as possible. And having a script and having that preparation really helps me to keep within the time that I have been given, and also really cover the content that I want to cover. So really, again, going back to the point of preparation, that's what I think really has helped me to master whatever presentation skills I have been able to, especially in the context where I haven't been really comfortable with public speaking.
I would like to add, technology helps us to stay focused. Use it. But please, complete dependability on it may trouble you. So be careful while using technology.
Reduce text, adding relevant pictures, and the right color combination in PPT can make the presentation more interesting.
Dr. Pradhan earlier mentioned preparation, and connecting that to what Vandana and Bhagwati just said, I was thinking, how does technology really help to prepare, deliver, and engage, right? I think we sometimes forget that technology has really changed the landscape of presentation. First of all, half of our presentations at least are now technologically mediated like this. We are in 3 different countries and we are put together by a technology that is mediating this process. If we don't pay attention to how this is going to work, scheduling, links, connecting, we are going to fail this communication. Presentations are also really dependent on technological connections, delivery, mediation, sound, video, audio. So it's very important to start paying attention to the technological mediation of presentation. For example, when you prepare, if you drag the line below the slide in PowerPoint or Google Slides up and write all of the notes in the notes section, you can write as much as you want. A lot of people hesitate to write because they think, oh, I'm not going to read. Yes, if you read when you're having a conversation with your granny, that's a problem. Just speaking spontaneously. You might look at a note that you thought you were going to look at while talking to granny. That's okay. Okay, I need to remember these 2 things to talk to granny. It's fine. But if you go beyond the 2 notes you write on a piece of paper while talking to granny, that's a problem. However, if someone gives you 5 minutes and you're supposed to present a complex issue in a concise manner in 5 minutes, I recommend that you write it down point by point. And if you feel like I can do justice to the topic by actually reading the whole script, go ahead and read the script. In the past, before the modern technology, it was hard to do that. You would have to do like this and it would look like this. People would see here. However, now you can put that technology right below the slide and you can occasionally look at it and talk, right? If you're hesitating and nervous, you can actually read it. It's okay. So the technological mediation of the reading or note-taking or looking at the notes once in a while, take advantage of that. Don't have a simplistic idea about reading. Sometimes reading is odd. Don't do it. Talking to granny. Sometimes reading is wonderful. You look at Nobel Prize speeches, they just go to the podium and read. Why? Many reasons. One, they want to be respectful of the audience. They want to be serious and sound serious. They want to say the right thing in the right word. These are historical presentations. They want to not miss the important points. They may be nervous, even though they're Nobel Prize winners. They may be scientists who are very shy and don't know how to speak. It's okay. If you are shy and don't know how to deliver without looking, look. If you don't know how to deliver without reading, read. That's better than doing a bad job of presentation, right? And second, I would say, if you practice 4 times reading, then you will either not have to read, or even if you read, you're going to sound natural. And that's the last trick I want to share. Use technology to help you prepare and help you remember and help you organize and help you structure. Use technology. I'm not overemphasizing, I think, when I say that, because these technologies like Zoom, I can share the middle part of my slide with the advanced screen share portion of the screen. Boom. And then I can look at the rest of the screen. I can look at the notes, I can look at the slide tabs, and I can click, click, click and present. See, that simple trick makes you a much better presenter, because if you're able to look, or you share one of the windows and you don't share another window where you have your notes, right? So that you don't have to look like this and talk, So these are some of the techniques that technology really mediates, and I'm really excited about new technologies. They help us to do better, but don't depend on the technology. Use the technology so that the technology will help you to do better with the human being that you're communicating.
I have been reading this book called How to Own a Room. It's about art of brilliant speaking, but also really about embracing your own particular style and what are you comfortable with. It's not about becoming somebody else, but also really figuring out your own particular style and developing this personal way of presenting that is uniquely yours. And I really think that that's quite a key idea in presentation skills as well. I will have to devise the way I would present, and that's, I think, quite important to really identify and hone that skill. And this book that I just mentioned, How to Own a Room, Art of Brilliant Speaking, is really about that.
And it's really important that book is also about women and the art of brilliant speaking, because traditionally men are seen as speaking well. They actually don't. There are many videos of how to present effectively online. Watch them, but it's not enough to watch. A lot of people try to learn about skills like presenting or dancing, but really you need to do the dance. So during this 4-module workshop, try to do that. Record yourself, audio record yourself. We're going to ask you to do that, and watch each other and give feedback, and do that during the week in which you're doing the presentation practice. And we hope you use some of the strategies we shared, and you'll also learn other strategies of your own, and especially strategies that are yours. And once you practice those strategies, I think you'll be an effective presenter. Thank you very much, everybody. Thank you for watching this video.